The Eastern Empire thought their advanced airships and magic cancelers made them the undisputed masters of the skies. But they didn't count on Gabiru making a major breakthrough in the heat of battle, or what happens when Ultima decides to drop in for a surprise inspection. If you want this series to keep reaching the right people, tap like, tell me in the comments which moment hit hardest, and subscribe for the next episode. Patreon members also get upcoming episodes early, and that support helps cover the AI narration, subtitles, thumbnails, and rendering behind this project. Now, let's get back to the battlefield, right as Major General Farraga realizes just how badly he's underestimated us. Major General Farraga was stunned by the scene before him. His fortresses in the sky boasted unstoppable defense thanks to a network of barriers overseen by teams of elite magicians. But now one of them had been shot down by a single blow from a monster. According to the Imperial Intelligence Bureau, this was an uncommon race known as the Dragon Newt. It essentially had the fighting power of a humanoid dragon, but what Farraga saw before him went far beyond that description. Farraga shouted at the bridge crew, "Who is that freak? What kind of bad intel did the IIB send me?" For a moment, the possibility crossed his mind that someone had sent him falsified intelligence to take a wizard like him down, but even he could not swallow that theory. No, that could not be. Those men had literally transformed in front of his eyes. Was this the morphological change seen in some monster races like in the book his master had written? Certain monster races, it was said, could freely switch between two forms at will. One suited everyday life, and the other was geared for battle. The dragon newts they were fighting now were an evolved form of lizardmen. Their wings gave them flight, and their breath attacks came in a variety of elements. As monsters, they were considered a B-level threat. You did not want to pick a fight with one for no reason, but they should not have been a major threat to an airship. Or they should not have been. This was different, Farraga muttered. What could be going on? He turned to his aide, helplessly confused as he tried to reconcile their intelligence with the reality in front of him. The aide bowed his head. "I'm deeply sorry, sir. According to a report from the person who measured the enemy monster's energy values, the statistics rise greatly after transformation. They discovered that the final value is several times the standardized level for an A rating." Farraga snapped back. Several times? So over an A? And they're completely immune to magic on top of that? Despite Farraga's ranting, he did not quite have it right. Gabiru's force had very high resist magic, but they were not impervious to magic. A hypothetical cancel magic was not in their repertoire. It was simply that the airship's magic attacks were not strong enough to break the multi-layer barriers protecting them. The aide answered carefully, "I hate to admit it, but from the situation at hand, I can only assume that our magic attacks aren't working, and the enemy's magic is shooting down our airships, our pride and joy." "I can see that for myself," Farraga wanted to say, but he held back, trying to keep a cool head. There was nothing to fear from a flock of 100 or so dragon newts. No matter how excellent their armor was, it could not be a match for the Empire's most advanced weapons. When those 300 wyverns fled, Farraga had believed victory was assured. Well, no. If he was honest, he had felt uneasy about it. Maybe it was his many years of battle experience, but something had given him an unpleasant premonition, and he did not like it. So his hunch had been right. For now, though, they needed countermeasures. With that in mind, Farraga turned his attention back to the battlefield. He asked, "If we're talking explosive growth, then each one of them is equivalent to a high-level magic born. Hazard level, maybe even calamity if we're unlucky. Do I have that right?" The aide confirmed, "Yes, sir. That's what I heard from our analysts." Farraga grimaced. Abominable. Sheerly abominable. If magic worked on them, even an A ranker could be handled well enough. What about the one in the leader role? The aide hesitated, unable to get the words out. Farraga's glare sharpened. What? What is it? The aide straightened. Sorry, sir. Allow me to brief you." The aide faltered as he looked at the report, but one glare from Farraga forced him to resume reading. What Farraga heard made him want to cringe. Farraga repeated the number in disbelief. "Over 10 times? Are they sure about that?" The aide insisted. "It's true, sir. There were no malfunctions in the measuring devices. That particular individual has over 10 times the energy of any of the others there. Farraga could only ask, how? Farraga was speechless. Even Ghidorah, who had gone through the cycle of reincarnation many times to build his powers, could not achieve such an absurd amount of magic force. This level was more along the lines of a demon lord. The aide continued. There was nothing about this particular monster in the IIB documents. He did not participate in the battle tournament the monsters held, so his fighting force is apparently unknown. Another aide added. According to one spy we sent in, this one was making a presentation about medicinal herbs at the event instead. He had some interesting things to say, but now that I think about it, perhaps that was their way of hiding a disaster-level threat from the world. Listening to his aides, Farraga concluded that it had to be true. What they had seen was a transformation. Tempest had kept its forces under wraps to catch the enemy off guard. Now that they knew the airships were armed almost entirely with magic, they had revealed their true selves. They really got one over on us, Farraga thought. Then he straightened. Gentlemen, calm down. We're fighting monsters here, and if we are, you all know that our victory remains unassailable. No matter who our foe is, we simply need to launch our magic cancelers at full blast, and they'll all be pinned down. Dragon newts might be rare, and those with transformation skills even rarer, but that did not make them unbeatable. The airships were cherished weapons, developed for use against Veldora. Their magic cancelers were the true showstopper among all their advantages. Use those, and not even the dragon family was worth breaking a sweat over. Even now, the magic cancelers were in effect, covering a wide area around them, including ground level. But they were operating in something like a trial run. Only for the fight against Veldora would they be turned up all the way and focused on a single point. The bodies of monsters were made up of magicules. Disrupt the magicules in the air around them, and they would inevitably slow down. Concentrate those disruptive waves in a smaller area, and they could render any monster helpless. His aides sprang into action. As they moved, Farraga tried to grasp the battle situation. Save for their leader, the Dragon Utes were forming teams of 5 in the air. 20 airships were currently engaged in battle with them, and fewer than 10 ships in the fleet had been taken down. There was still plenty of room to recover. An aide reported, Major General, we're ready to fire. But in our current position, we'll lose some of our own allies to the cannon blast. Farraga's answer was cold. So? The aide swallowed. Oh, never mind, sir. Farraga gave the order. Then get on with it. The aide snapped back. Yes, sir. What happened if you shot magic cancelers at an airship that stayed aloft by magical force? The answer was obvious. Without the magical effects supporting it, the airship would follow the laws of physics right to the ground. The crew would be wiped out, including the magicians who looked up to Farraga, their old companion from the magic division. Despite that, Farraga gave the order without batting an eye. The bridge gave the command, begin irradiation, now. The remaining ships set off, circling around Gabiru's forces and the airships currently engaged with them. Then, one after another, they fired their cancelers from their bows. The targeted airships began to fall downward, along with the Dragon Utes in combat. I'm sorry, Farraga thought, but this is a necessary sacrifice. Eyes wide open, he prayed silently as the fallen airships hit the ground and burst into flames. There was no way the crew, to say nothing of the monsters caught up in it, were safe. One aide said, well done. Now the only thing that remains is the special one among them. Another tried to sound relieved. And even if magic doesn't work on it, the shockwave and the heat are beyond anything it could take. It was a great sacrifice, a third said, but a small price to pay for taking out 100 upper-level magic-born. Relief washed over the aides, but Farraga cut through it. Don't rest easy yet. Sacrificing your compatriots is nothing to be proud of, and we haven't finished off that one individual yet. The words made the aides stiffen. The Demon Lord-class individual had been frozen in the air, but his wings were still intact and keeping him in the sky. With more than 20 airships destroyed, there was no way they could let him escape. One aide muttered, if it were only the flightless Gobta of the Big Four, we wouldn't have had any of this trouble. Another agreed. Indeed, we in tandem with Gaster's tank force could have broken down even the strongest defenses. A third tried to find hope. But this guy here is pinned down by the magic canceller. If we keep irradiating him, it has to tear his body apart sooner or later. The analyst's answer crushed that hope. We can't be certain of that. Our analysts are still conducting observations, but the individual's energy values are falling only minimally. The exchange sent a chill through Farraga's core. They were exposing him to magic cancelers from over 70 airships at once, and all they could do was pin him down. Trying to weaken him might be meaningless altogether. As unbelievable as it was, Farraga knew he needed to rethink his strategy. This was a whole new dimension of strength. Focusing all their magic cancelers only just stopped his movements. Maybe they could weaken him with time, but Farraga had never imagined another monster on Veldora's level. This one had to be more trouble than Gobta of the Big Four. Then, suddenly, Farraga had a flash of inspiration. Maybe this individual was Veldora, the exact target they had been looking for. The thought sounded enticingly convincing. Before he knew it, Farraga's mouth was speaking by itself. If this is Veldora, then that explains the off-the-charts energy readings. His aides reacted at once. One of them said, "Oh, so being newly freed from his seal, maybe he's too weakened to even maintain his dragon form?" Another protested, "Weakened? He's got all this power and you call that weakened? Even his squadron had powers comparable to dragons. In fact, we've tracked a few of them approaching the level of an archdragon." Farraga seized the idea. That's right, that, my friends, is the horror of Veldora. He defeated the Imperial army once before. My master Ghidorah told me the story, and even after being sealed away for 300 years, he's still this strong. Hard to imagine what he was like before the seal, isn't it? His aides nodded approvingly. Yes, one said. With that much power, no wonder the army of Farmus never stood a chance. Another said, the Major General is right. I'm pretty convinced this is Veldora. Most of the room agreed, but not everyone. One aide cautiously raised a hand. Excuse me, Major General. According to our documents, the name of the Dragon Ute leader is Gabiru. Farraga laughed it off. That's an alias, you fool. We've all heard how Veldora's power has waned after being sealed. He's just trying to keep a low profile until he regains his true fighting strength. With that much assurance from his commander, the questioning aide had no choice but to back down. The questioning aide conceded. It is rather unheard of for a monster to take an alias. But if any would, perhaps it would be Veldora? There were still things he did not agree with Farraga on, but he forced himself to see it Farraga's way. Once word spread among the crew that Veldora was the individual they were pitted against, the officers' faces lit up with joy. One officer said, "It's terrible that we lost 30% of our valued airships. But if that was against Veldora, it's hardly anyone's fault." Another brightened. "If anything, it's a stroke of good luck. We needed to be on the lookout for the wide-ranging attack that defeated Farmus. Good thing we blocked him off with our magic cancelers as early as we did." Yes, Farraga thought. Veldora was trapped in the cancelers, unable to move. Keep draining him of strength and it would be far easier to kill him. Out of nowhere, he had completed the biggest coup of the entire operation. Slowly, deliberately, Farraga chewed on his good fortune. He asked, "Is the output on the cancelers all right?" An analyst replied, "No problem, sir. Stable 80%. Farraga followed up, "How much longer until it reaches maximum power?" The analyst answered, "Estimated under an hour, sir. At this rate, it's all we can do to pin him down." But little by little, Veldora's physical disintegration has begun. I think it'll be effective enough. Farraga smiled. Veldora has an hour to live then. Good, more than enough time for Gaster to finish seizing the ground war. His aides were excellent. Without another word, they understood his intentions and worked with the analyst to provide the updates he needed. At the drop of a hat, they reviewed the operation and identified potential problems. In an hour, they concluded, Gobta of the Big Four should be suitably routed. Fusing with that wolf monster made him formidable, but even that lost out to Veldora. If Gaster's tank battalion put their minds to it, defeating him would not be too hard. Now fully convinced, Farraga focused on rallying morale. If it's Veldora and his kin, then no wonder magic didn't work. But the goddess of victory has smiled upon us. Just sit back, relax, and the Empire's long-held dream will be granted. Victory was in the air across the bridge. One officer said, "Let's get some wine ready." Another answered, Good idea, something special this time. A nice 400-year-old vintage, perhaps. A third officer savored the idea. Yes, the perfect wine to toast the Empire's vindication. The liege should settle within an hour. The first agreed. Very good, let's go with that then. Then a bright voice joined them. Oh, can I have some too? The beautiful girl, her long bluish-purple hair in a side ponytail, had seated herself in the aide's chair next to Farraga. Since when was she here? And not just that, she wore a full military uniform, one that did not suit her age at all. Despite its abject formality, it only enhanced the girl's cute looks. Farraga instantly regretted his carelessness. The sheer certainty of victory had left him too relaxed, and not just him. Every aide and officer on the bridge had let down his guard as well. The girl must have slipped through all those gaps to make her way in here. Farraga demanded, "Who are you?" Where had the intruder come from? What did she want? She was almost certainly a foe, not a friend, but Farraga doubted she would give an honest answer. Ultima sounded disappointed. Oh, I can't have any? Then I guess tea's fine instead. I've had a busy day as an observer, so I'm good and parched. The rest of the bridge turned to see the mystery person Farraga was addressing. Their eyes went wide when they spotted her. The ship had barriers in operation both inside and outside, and nothing about this girl had been detected in advance. Yet there she was, sitting as though she had always belonged in that seat. Farraga repeated, "I said, who are you?" He slowly stood and turned toward the girl, accentuating his question by pointing a gun at her. The girl kept smiling, seemingly not threatened at all. And it was not a threat, not to her. Ultima answered, "You want to know who I am? My name's Ultima. That name is super important. Sir Rimuru himself gave it to me. This was Violet, the original purple, one of the most powerful balance-breaking presences on the planet." Farraga calmly observed this Ultima, trying to assess her capabilities. A conversation would be an effective means to that end, so he spoke up. "Ultima, never heard of you." Ultima gave him a pitying look. "No? Wow, you're pretty ignorant. I came here because I wanted to ask some questions, but maybe I ought to ask somebody else." Farraga narrowed his eyes. "What?" Ultima went on cheerfully. "Look, you guys are all gonna die soon, you know, so I want you to tell me about some stuff before that happens." She delivered the explanation with a sweet, innocent smile. The feeling it conjured in Farraga was difficult to describe. If he had to compare it to anything, it was like the first time he encountered a high-ranked Imperial Guardian, one of those absolute presences. If anything, Ultima put even more choking pressure on him than that. Was he being pressured by this girl? Was he actually afraid of her? Farraga doubted his own instincts, but if Ultima had broken into an airship by herself, she had to be extraordinary. This was, without question, a major emergency. He guessed what she was after, then realized how obvious it was. Veldora, still held captive, was outside the observation window, a sight that symbolized the Empire's total victory. The monsters had to be frantic. They would likely try anything to get Veldora back. Farraga could not believe he was shuddering under the thrall of a monster the IIB knew nothing about. This had to be their top fixer, a top-level monster serving Veldora directly. She looked as human as they came, but it was impossible to put into words just how horrifyingly evil her aura was. Farraga did not know who she was, but luckily he knew a monster with an aura like that. Ghidorah, his master, had been conducting fervent research on them. So Farraga pointed his gun at Ultima. "I've got it. You're a demon, aren't you?" Ultima sounded pleased. "Wow, good job, you're right." "Of course I am," Farraga thought. With this level of evil spirit, she had to be a high-ranking archdemon, one both physically incarnate and named, a true monster through and through. The big open question was her rank. She was definitely noble. Medieval or lower would be preferred, but if she was ancient, they might have problems. No, Farraga told himself. They could stop a demon's special skills in this space. A demon without magic was hardly anything to fear. He began secretly giving instructions to his subordinates. The order was to point their magic canceller at the ship's interior. It would shut down the magic amplifier cannon, disarm their spell guns, and turn the magicians in the crew into helpless people. But that was exactly what Farraga wanted. Block off a monster's magicules and the threat was gone. The same should be true for demons. Take that step and the magic a demon fought with was off the table. If you were waging a magic battle against an archdemon, all the sorcerers in the world could not give you a chance at victory. It was much better to create a position of superiority first, increasing your odds of coming out on top. Keeping his gun in full view, Farraga moved one hand toward the saber at his waist. Then he kept talking, trying to hold Ultima's attention. I'm surprised Veldora wrangled up a demon assistant like you. Ultima blinked. Huh? Sir Veldora? Farraga gave a self-satisfied laugh. No need to hide it. What other reason would you have for being here, apart from coming to your lord's rescue? Ultima immediately corrected him. No. I am the faithful servant of Sir Rimuru. The servant of the demon lord Rimuru? Farraga did not buy it. She was clearly here to rescue Veldora. He had never received any briefing that indicated Veldora had people working for him. Whether she served Veldora or a demon lord, though, that was a triviality. Farraga pressed on. My pardons. So you're here to save Veldora, aren't you? Ultima's patience thinned. What are you talking about? I just told you I'm here to ask some questions. Don't you listen to people? Somehow, they did not seem to be on the same page. Was she bluffing? Farraga did not see the point of hiding it, but what did she want? A vague uneasiness began to grow in him, as if he was wrong about something, as if he was making some kind of big mistake. He asked, "So what do you want to ask me?" Ultima smiled, like she had been waiting all day for that question. Well, how this ship works and how to control it, for one. That's pretty important. Also, the remaining military forces in the Empire. Like, how many really strong guys do you have and stuff like that? As much as you know, okay? Her innocent attitude felt like nothing but disrespect to Farraga. If she was messing with him, fine. He would admit she was a trickster. But what could one person do? He still had concerns, but that was how he truly felt. All their preparations would be done soon, and they had the perfect counter for a demon. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the signal that everything was ready. Victory was now assured. Farraga regained his composure. Farraga's voice turned smug. You think I'm just going to give that to you? Ultima shrugged it off. No, not really, but I guess that doesn't matter. Got my tea ready yet? I've been waiting a while. Farraga snapped. I've got something even better than tea for you. As if shaking off his remaining hesitation, Farraga pulled the trigger. The bullet flew away, signaling the start of battle. At the same time, the magic cancel came into effect across the airship. The weapon in Farraga's hand was not a spell gun. It was a Colt Government 1911, a military-grade semi-automatic pistol manufactured by Colt in the United States. It was an antique brought over by an otherworlder, and Farraga cherished it so much that he never missed a day of maintenance. It was loaded with 7+1 rounds, and its nickname Hand Cannon came from the large caliber bullets specially made at great expense. But the Colt was only a diversion. As a spiritual life form, a basic weapon meant nothing to a demon. An incarnated demon might feel a little pain, but that would be it. With a deft hand, Farraga released the safety and fired every bullet. He had no optimism about gunning her down. Only someone with a death wish would look down on an archdemon like that. As soon as the sound stopped, Farraga saw he was right. Ultima was still seated in her chair, not a care in the world, as she lifted her left hand and let 8 bullets drop to the floor. He did not know how she had done it without magic, but the bullets had been drained of their kinetic energy and Ultima's hand was unhurt. Ultima commented, "That's a pretty fun-looking toy you got there, but I like the one Sir Rimuru has more." Farraga answered, "Oh yeah? Well, this one's my favorite." The result was honestly more disappointing than expected, but it did not surprise him. Holstering his gun, he drew the saber at his hip. This was a magic saber, but it retained its powers even under a magic canceller. Using Farraga's own magic force to keep magicules steadily flowing inside the blade, it could produce an effect even greater than a magic or a sword-infused weapon. Magic swords worked against demons. If he destroyed this physical body of hers, she would never withstand the magic canceller. Farraga's thought hardened. Off to the demon world with you. Farraga was a wizard, but he was also a talented sword fighter. He did not go out of his way to show that off. but he was proud to say he was as good as any famous swordsman. That was why, even in this magic-blocked environment, he could keep calm. Ultima also remained unfazed while the magic canceller worked on her. Farraga coldly assumed that was fake bravado, and he was not about to let his foe's performance fool him. He sneered at her. "So how's it feel to have all your fancy magic blocked?" Ultima only gave him a puzzled look. Farraga's confidence grew. "Getting impatient, aren't you? Well, this little chat is over, accursed demon." The air around Farraga changed. An invisible thread of tension stretched between him and Ultima. Ultima asked, You wanna go?" Farraga answered, "Of course. What kind of dimwit would ever make a deal with the devil?" Ultima tilted her head. "Dimwit. Hey, are you talking about me?" Farraga snapped back. "Who else, you fool? Can't you understand that? Let me tell you one thing. You want to know who's strong in this empire? Well, I'm one of them." Taking advantage of Ultima's brief reply, Farraga thrust his saber through the air. It was a master-level stab technique aimed at Ultima's heart, a true finisher that not even a magic-born could evade. But Ultima's voice came from behind him. "Then I'll kill you last." His killing blow did not touch Ultima in her seat. Instead, it went through the chair and punched a hole in it. Shockingly, the girl had somehow moved from right in front of him to right behind him. That was the unbelievably truth Farraga had to face. Ultima continued, "If you don't want to have a conversation, that's fine. I'm still gonna have you answer my questions, though. But don't worry, you don't have to say anything. I'll just take the knowledge from you myself." With an innocent smile, Ultima looked around at the soldiers and officers watching her. Then, in a horribly chilling voice, she chose her first target. "Okay, let's start with you first." Farraga had barely begun to react when a round mass flew past his side and slammed against the wall, leaving a stain. It was a human head. One of his aides, now dead, fell to the floor and began convulsing, as if he had forgotten he was supposed to do that until just that moment. Farraga gasped. "What on earth?" Ultima inspected the corpse. Well, he didn't know much, did he? "Okay, let's keep going." She randomly ripped off another officer's head, played with it in her fingers for a few seconds, then discarded it. This became a process, one she repeated in a steady rhythm, leaving a growing pile of corpses behind her. The bridge had transformed into a hellscape of shrieking and terror. Farraga shouted, "Turn the magic canceller up to maximum. Contact the other ships and have them focus their sights on our flagship." The magicians in attendance were panicking, but Farraga's demands brought them back to their senses. Hurriedly, they followed his orders and sprang into action. Ultima asked, almost curious, "Is this magic canceller your new weapon and stuff? It sends out random commands to local magicules to inhibit magic casting, doesn't it?" "Yeah, I'm sure that works on lots of monsters, but did you think it'd work on me?" she asked with the most adorable head tilt. Farraga answered with something close to a scream. "You're bluffing. Don't think you can bluff your way out of this." Ultima seemed unconcerned. I don't know about that. I mean, if I was a mystic beast built up from magicules, then yeah, I feel like that'd have a pretty good effect. But don't you think it's kind of a waste of time to point that at me if I've already incarnated into this body?" Farraga froze. "What?" Ultima kept talking as if he had not interrupted. "Besides, maybe it'd be a different story with a lower-level demon, but not a high-end one, you know? Because when we're conscious, magic just kinda happens naturally with us, like you guys and breathing. Like this, see?" With that, Ultima disappeared. At the same time, the head of the communications officer sitting at the end of the command deck flew off. Ultima had completed the job in an instant. She explained, "Did you see that? All I did was move a bit, and it sent that man's head up in the air. I was going faster than the speed of sound, but you didn't feel any sonic boom, did you? That's magic, you know. And also..." Ultima gave her hand a little shake. Her fingertips seemed to blur for a moment, as if in a haze. Then came the wet sound of something hitting a hard object, and the head of the aide standing next to Farraga burst apart. Ultima finished the lesson. "You see, if I want a shockwave, it's easy. All I have to do is follow the laws of physics, and ta-da!" It was such an innocent way to calmly describe an atrocious act. She felt no guilt about it whatsoever. Farraga muttered, "No." Now he was finally understanding her. The common sense he had spent his life developing got in the way of comprehending any of this. It was like she was speaking a language from some faraway nation. His instincts refused to accept it. Was she really an archdemon? Even now, Farraga was still pondering Ultima's true identity. In terms of actual strength, Farraga was a good match for an archdemon, but a lot depended on age. A newborn one he could beat alone. Against an ancient demon or older, that would be too much. But a lesser noble, medieval in age or younger, might give him a sporting chance. So what was all this? They had a magic canceller that could keep even Veldora pinned down and helpless, but it was not working for them at all. And even if Ultima, this named demon, was physically incarnated, her strength was simply extraordinary. That was what threw Farraga's common sense for such a loop. At last, he understood that he had no hope of beating Ultima, no matter how much he struggled. So he wasted no more time and played his final move. Farraga shouted, "Don't get cocky with me, demon. Summon spirit, Ifrit. Come to me, elemental of the primordial flames." It was the most powerful of summon spells, offered only to champion-level casters. Farraga alone could not master that arcane art, but with the ship's magic amplifier cannon and 50 magicians helping him, it was now possible. Magic cancellers had only a tiny effect on spirits, which was why such a summoning could succeed. With a mighty roar, Ifrit materialized on the bridge, thoroughly trashing it. If the spirit was high level enough to outrank the demon, even an archdemon could be obliterated. Farraga was sure of it as he turned toward Ultima. He forced the words out. "I'll admit it, you're a menace. But we've been studying demons for a long, long time and we're well prepared for them. Sorry, my friend, but it's over for you." Even with Farraga's strained voice ringing in her ears, Ultima kept smiling. For the first time in his life, Farraga learned just how awful a smile could be. This could not be. There was no way she could beat the Ifrit he had summoned. The Ifrit had been granted the power of 50 magicians working through an amplifier cannon. That made it several times stronger than a regular high-level spirit. Whether she was ancient or prehistoric, no archdemon could ever beat it. And yet Farraga's fear persisted. Ultima's smile sharpened. "Don't get carried away just because you summoned that small fry. You really should have started talking while I was still giving you a nice friendly smile. Now I'm gonna give you nothing but despair." Ah, it's over. That was the immediate thought, the instinct in Farraga's mind. The next moment, right in front of Farraga and the surviving bridge crew, Ifrit, the embodiment of absolute power, froze and shattered into a million pieces. It was the elemental magic Cositus, and Ultima had launched it without any casting time, as naturally as breathing. One crewman could only stammer. Another screamed, "No, she's a monster." A third cried, "What was that? What was that?" The poor fools were crying what were likely their final tears, in a state of complete panic. It was natural. The living personification of death was standing before them. Ultima's voice was almost cheery. "Okay, now back to question time." That was the last thing those souls ever heard. A few minutes later, a beaming Ultima chuckled to herself. She had acquired everything she wanted to know, and she was delighted with it all. She could not glean every single piece of knowledge from them, but to Ultima, reading people's brainwaves for information was a snap. She was an intelligence officer, and bringing back information was part of her mission. If she did a good job, she knew her master Rimuru would be pleased. "I sure hope he gives me some praise," she thought. Then she turned toward the last survivor in the room. This was Farraga. He was the only one Ultima had spared amid all that despair, and she certainly had not skipped him out of mercy. Ultima leaned close. "And since you called me a fool, I'm going to give you the biggest scare of all. I bet you'll survive it if you try hard enough, so let's see what you can do, okay?" Upon whispering that, Ultima activated a spell. Jet black flames the size of a fist rose above her left hand. Farraga could only stare. Oh. He recognized it, an abyss core, a kind of uncontrollable hellfire that was the byproduct of activating a certain other magic. Or maybe it was controllable all along, and Farraga just did not know how. He knew that 3 members of the 7 Days clergy, the champions of humankind, could manage it. But the Abyss Core Ultima conjured was more than a level larger than the one the 7 Days could create. He might not have known how it worked, but one look was enough for even him to understand how much of a tactical level threat this was. Ultima casually tossed it into the air. "Okay, have fun. Bye now." Without another word, she walked away from the bridge. Farraga was left stunned. The question of what Ultima really was no longer mattered. As soon as he caught that Abyss Core, he realized he was at the end of his life. Instinctively, he understood that he would never be able to control it. That understanding was correct. Even his full power was meaningless against it. The fire that had left Ultima's control expanded, multiplied, and spread forward as if mocking his worthless efforts. Just as Ultima took off, the dark ball of fire engulfed the flagship. Then it grew even bigger, swelling to a gigantic size and triggering an explosion. It was now a nuclear flame, the ultimate in destructive magic, and Farraga was in the middle of it. Farraga whispered, almost in ecstasy, "Beautiful. This is it, the magnum opus of all magic." With that look on his face, he let the dark flames scorch his body. Soon, his body had evaporated, letting his very soul taste the pain of being burned alive. Farraga's final thoughts turned to his master. Master Ghidorah, have you ever experienced this miracle? No, Farraga decided, he could not have. Farraga understood now that magic canceller interference would not matter if it could be dominated by someone with strong enough thought waves. This beautiful destruction, the one giving him such a sublime sense of despair, was all the proof he needed. And so, fighting back the despair and enormous gratitude of being surrounded by the ultimate in magic, Farraga's life came to a close. Thanks to the destructive nuclear flame, the flying combat corps led by Farraga was thoroughly crushed. Not a trace of it remained. The superheated flames caused most of the initial damage, followed by the secondary shockwave from the explosion. The flagship was vaporized by a core of unimaginable heat, while the surrounding ships exploded and scattered to the 4 winds, their hulls becoming lethal shrapnel. Larger fragments hurtled downward beyond the speed of sound, causing incredible damage all by themselves. With that explosion, the outcome was set in stone. Only the very first ship to fall from the sky remained recognizable. All the others were ripped apart by the chain of explosions that served as the day's climax. Thus, the Flying Combat Corps, the golden child of the Imperial military, suffered the disgrace of being completely wiped from existence before it even caught a whiff of Veldora. Ultima was now flying away from the flagship, her interest in Farraga already gone. She turned to look at the swelling fireball and gave it a satisfied nod. Remembering Rimuru's order to go at full power, she wondered if she should have turned it up another notch. Then she thought better of it. That would have killed off Team Hiryu on the ground, so this much was just fine. Despite the catastrophe in the air, Team Hiryu had taken no damage, as though the blast had been calculated to end that way all along. Then again, if some of its members failed to meet their quota, they might suffer indirect casualties later, but that was none of Ultima's business. What concerned her more was Gabiru. Ultima muttered, "What's Gabiru been doing over there?" Gabiru had been exposed to prolonged magic canceller fire. It sounded like the bridge had mistaken him for Veldora for reasons Ultima did not care to untangle. As things stood, however, he was going to get caught in the nuclear flame, so she really wanted him to retreat already. She flew over to his side, annoyed by how much of a hassle this was. Ultima called out, "Hey Gabiru, what are you doing?"
Ah, Lady Ultima. I've actually gained a new sense, you see.
He sounded oddly boastful about it. It piqued Ultima's interest, but evacuation came first. She would not be killed by her own magic, but Gabiru probably would not survive. Maybe he would, but she did not want to take that bet, and she certainly did not want to be stigmatized as someone who had killed her allies. So Ultima forcibly removed Gabiru from the scene. Back on the ground, the two of them regrouped with Team Hiryu. It was finally time for Ultima's interrogation to begin. Ultima's tone turned firm. "So what's this all about?" Apart from her intelligence officer duties, Ultima was also an observer watching over Gabiru, providing support and advice so he did not do anything foolish. If Gabiru failed, that meant Ultima failed too. So so it was only natural for her to be harsh with him, but Gabiru was totally oblivious to this.
You see, when I was exposed to that special light beam the enemy shot at me, I had a brief stroke of genius. I immediately saw that this light affected Magicules, and so I wanted to experiment to see how long I could withstand it.
I should just turn this lizard over to Sir Rimuru and have him scream at him, Ultima thought. But she held her ground and soldiered on. She asked, "And so what's this new sense of yours?"
Yes, that's the thing! All of you, come up and listen close! Sir Midray told us that our intrinsic skill Dragon Body would become available to us for longer periods of time as we trained with it. I too kept myself transformed that entire time, didn't I?
He looked around at his squad mates, sneering at them. Team Hiryu exchanged surprised glances. They were all able to transform for an average of about 10 minutes, and they had long since returned to their original forms by now. One soldier asked, "I thought that would be a given for you, Sir Gabiru, but no?" Another leaned in. "If you teach us this secret, can we do it too?" His troops grew more and more excited. Ultima glanced at them with cold, dead eyes. If only these lizards could experience a little pain for a change, she thought. She showed no mercy to her foes and little care for those below her in rank. But technically speaking, Gabiru's force was not in her hierarchy. If she disposed of them without permission, Rimuru would fume at her. A lecture was one thing. But when she recalled how Rimuru reacted whenever one of his people got hurt, she would likely receive a much harsher punishment. Maybe even banishment. Ultima was determined not to let that happen. After weighing that punishment against the chance to release some stress on these lizards, she reluctantly decided to remain patient. Gabiru told her with total confidence,
"It is thanks to you that I've discovered the secret of this power. You believed me when I said I had an idea, and you bought me enough time to think it through."
Ultima blinked. What?
No need to play dumb, for I, Gabiru, can see right through you. We all thank you for giving us the opportunity to grow from our inexperience.
Ultima never turned down a compliment. Regaining her composure, she decided to revise her assessment of Gabiru a little. "Okay, that's enough. So what did you discover, Gabiru? Because everyone else seems to want to know about it." She decided not to bother correcting Gabiru's misunderstanding. Right now, it was more important to get the situation under control. By this point, fighting was taking place only in localized pockets. There was the rear, commanded by Hakuro, the center, where Gobta and Ranga were still rampaging away, and the three main enemy positions Testarossa was headed for. Now that Gabiru's crew had finished destroying the Air Force, it was time to provide support to other parts of the battle. There was no time for idle chit-chat. Gabiru became stern.
I'll report this to Sir Rimuru as well, but before that, I will be as brief as I can. All of you listen up too, because it'll help everyone become stronger.
Gabiru began his explanation. In essence, it was a way to fully control the Dragon Body skill. As an intrinsic Dragon Mute skill, Dragon Body strengthened the user's body through a surge of Magicules. That surge took in matter around it for the strengthening effect. More mass meant enhanced defense, along with near-immediate recovery if the user was injured. With Magicules running out of control like that, casting magic was off the table. But breath skills and other ability-based skills worked just fine. As long as the user could keep hold of their consciousness, Dragon Body provided enhanced strength with almost no downside. Gabiru continued.
Now it seems that this enemy attack has a tendency to disrupt the movement of Magicules around us. I could feel more power there, but it was power I couldn't handle very well.
Ultima was surprised. Right now, Gabiru had Magicule energy equivalent to when Clayman had awoken for the last time. If Magicule disruption could push that even further, then Gabiru was definitely worth listening to. But there was always a catch.
No, not like a simple boost. There was more power, yes, but I couldn't move at all. So I consciously focused myself, trying to feel the Magicules running rampant inside my body.
The result had been the pinned-down performance he showed a little while ago. Gabiru was not taking damage, but he had not been able to move at all. However, Gabiru had a knack for turning anything to his advantage. Through that experience, he learned how to more fully sense his own Magicules.
That's what Sir Midray was referring to when he talked about a state of selflessness, I think. Looking into your inner space, turning an ear to it, and then finding the shape of the power.
Ultima cut in sharply. You're taking too long. Keep it short and simple. Gabiru's force nodded in agreement with Ultima's feedback. Gabiru wilted for a moment.
Oh. Well, essentially, by sensing the magicules running wild inside me, I could send my thoughts to them. And then, wonder of wonders, I gained control over their power.
His men's first impression was that he was nuts. On the other hand, it gave Ultima food for thought. Seeing them made her realize that while this was easier than breathing for her, it must have been extremely difficult for Team Hiryu. That gave her a real shot of motivation. If I train Gabiru's force, she thought, maybe they can become even stronger. Doing that would definitely make her useful to Rimuru. The potential for receiving praise from it was enormous. Ultima said, I know exactly what you mean, Gabiru, but we can take the time to discuss this later, alright? Because right now, I really think we need to support the goblins. It was her way of saying the break was over. Typically, she would report to Rimuru about how lazy they were, but after receiving such useful information from Gabiru, Ultima raised her opinion of him slightly. That was why she was being so gracious, overlooking Gabiru's erratic behavior this time. Gabiru nodded happily.
Ah yes, you're right. Well, time for us to step in and provide aid then.
He still had the completely wrong idea, but Ultima did not see that as a problem. It was better that way for her, so she let Team Hiryu be without further comment. Gabiru warned his soldiers.
Anyone who didn't meet their quota is going to face some thorough re-education later, so be prepared.
Ultima gave him an adorable smile. You said it. I'll pitch in on that too. It seemed like a very good idea to her. And so, blissfully unaware of her intentions, Team Hiryu went back out onto the field.
Route confirmed. The next episode and full playlist are ready.
Then don't stop here. Keep watching in story order and subscribe before the next part drops.